Welcome back, and in this video we're going to be doing a sweep using Inventor. So you're looking at the drawing on the screen, and this one was actually done in AutoCAD. So I'll make sure I link that video here up in the card up in the top left or right corner, and that video will show you how I actually created this using a 3D polyline path, right? And when you're using this in Inventor, there's going to be one major difference that you're going to see. So I'm not going to use a 3D polyline path. I'm going to have to use a 3D sketch. Also, what you're going to see if you do decide to go watch the AutoCAD version of this is that we're able to put bends and sweeps into here rather easily. When I do this in Inventor, I have to actually put those bends in there manually. So I'm not going to do that in this video, but I will show you where the icon is for that, right? But in this one, we're going to create a 3D path, and this is something that's kind of different if you've never created a 3D path using Inventor. So we're going to take So here in Inventor, what we're going to do is we're going to go to New, and we're going to create this part out of inches. So I'm going to go to the English tab, and then I'll click on Standard Inches IPT. All right, so you can either double click on that icon or click it one time and hit create, just like I did. And then we're going to sit back and let Inventor load up, and then I'll come back here in a second, and we should be able to get started. Look like we're already ready to go, actually. Okay, so underneath this drop down, it's usually set to showing you a 2D sketch, right? So instead of doing that, I want you to select this drop down here, and then I want you to pick on Start 3D Sketch. Now, hopefully you saw the difference between when I did the 2D sketch and the 3D sketch. If I go back to this, I'm going to go ahead and finish this sketch real quick, and then I'll go ahead and delete this sketch. But if I go to start a 2D sketch, you're going to see that I automatically get these planes to appear. So Inventor says, okay, you need to go ahead and pick a plane that you want to create your 2D drawing on. When we go to create a 3D sketch, it just says, all right, I'm going to give you an area out here in the open space where you can create it. Let me go ahead and delete this sketch here. And all I did was right click on that sketch and I'll delete it. And then I'm going to go ahead and create a new 3D sketch, right? So once I do that, the only thing that you notice changed is just the ribbon, but you don't get any of those planes. Not to say that those planes are not here. They are located here. They're just not shown, okay? Let's go ahead and start a line. And when you start the line command, and I always like to set this up in an isometric look. So I'll always click on the Home tab just so I can see this isometrically. What I'm going to do is first start clicking on this black dot here. So that's going to be my start point. So I'm going to left click here. And then the next thing you need to do is go ahead and define what plane that you're going to create this on. Meaning that which one of these planes am I going to draw on? So I'm going to create this shape, and I'm going to draw on this plane here. So I'm going to select this plane. And then you're going to get these axes that show up. With these axes, you can go ahead and highlight and hover over them. And now you can see that this is going in the Z direction. If I rotate this direction, you can see next to my cursor it's saying X direction. So these lines are telling me that I'm parallel to the X direction or the Z direction on this plane. All right. So I'm going to go this direction, and then I'm just going to do a left click here. I'll go ahead and hit the escape button. Now, what I usually like to do on my first point that I put in the drawing is that I'll use a coincidence constraint. So I'm going to select coincidence. I'm going to select this endpoint. And then I'm going to go to my browser here, and I'm going to select the center point. What that's going to do is going to lock that endpoint to that center point. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put a dimension on this. And my dimension is going to be on this line. It's going to be at 23. All right, let me zoom out a little bit more. All right, so now I have the length of this line is set at 23, and I also have one of my points fixed. I can still kind of, move this line around a little bit, but overall it's going to stay in this direction, right? If you want to verify and keep it, make sure that it is on this plane. Another way of doing that is if you look down here at your UCS, you can see the X and the Z, right? So that's the plane I want to lock it to. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to find the XZ, and then I'm going to select this line here. Once I do that, it's going to lock that line on the XZ axis now. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this around because I tend to like working going to the up and to the right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this square and then one more on this square. All right. So now that I have my center point defined, I have a line that's defined. What I tend to do next is just go ahead and include some geometry. And what I'm going to do is go find the x-axis over here and see if I can bring that in. So if it's not letting you bring that in, don't worry about it. We're going to do a line. And this time I'm going to create that line along this red axis here. And I'm just going to go straight across. All right. So what I'm going to do next is that I want this line here to be parallel to the x-axis, right? So I'm going to go x-axis, and then I'm going to select the line. Now it's going to make that line parallel to the x-axis. Now keep in mind we're still in 3D, so this thing can move up and down in the y direction. So if I also want to lock this line to the x and z axis, or x and z plane, I can select xz plane, then I can select this line, and now it's just telling me that it is over constrained, which is fine in this case. So that's just me verifying that it is on that plane. Go ahead and hit the cancel button. All right, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this line here from this midpoint to that endpoint. So I'm just going to go to coincidence. I'm going to go find the green dot on this line, and then I'm going to select the endpoint on this line. Now this line can have any dimension that you want. You just need a length on it, right? So I'm going to give it a length. And for drawing's sake, let's just call this 12. All right. So now that I have this line sitting at 12, what I'm also going to do is make this my construction line, because this is going to be the line that I'm going to use to set all my angles off of. So let's go select this line here and make it construction. All right. So now let's go back to the drawing and see. All right, so looking at the drawing, I want you to understand, so we started here and we went up 23, so that's where I got that number. This next line is going to be 18 long going this direction, and it is 20 degrees. This 20 degrees is measured that if the x-axis is pointing to the right, so it's 20 degrees rotated from a horizontal line going up this direction. So therefore, I will go ahead and add that step in next, and then we're going to put in the 28 and the 91. So I'm going to go ahead and do both of these lines next. So I'm going to do the 18 and the 20 and the 20. Okay, so let's go ahead and start our next line. We're going to put a line at this endpoint. And once again, it does like to define which plane you're going to select on. So I'm just going to select this plane here. And I'm going to come out this direction, right? You'll notice that I'm not in line with anything or doing anything weird out of the ordinary. Let's go ahead and put the distance on here. So we know that this line is 18 long. And now the angle is going to be measured from this line here. So that's the reason why I put this line here. So I'm going to select my dotted line, and then I'm going to select this line here, and then I'm going to tell it 20 degrees, right? So now you can see that this line has one more thing that it needs, and I always like to verify and make sure that it is on the X and XZ plane. So I'm going to select XZ plane, and then I'm going to select my line here. And once again, it says it's over constrained. I'm happy with that. I'm one of these people that like to be a little bit cautious whenever I create these, right? Let me verify and make sure that I can't move this line anywhere else. And you can see that I'm just clicking and dragging on the endpoints, or I can't move that line anywhere. So that line is good to go. Let's go ahead and create our next line, which is going to be a line from this endpoint. And if I don't select that and I just go ahead and just place a point out here in random, I can come back and move that later. So remember that we're trying to keep everything on this XZ plane, so I can always come to XZ plane and then select my line. So it'll snap it down, right? Next thing I want to do is that I want to verify the length of this line. So I'm just going to put a dimension, and I'm typing in D, which is a shortcut for that dimension, which is 28. And now I have to give it an angle, right? So I'm going to go back to the dimension, select this line here, and select this one. And then I'm going to click. And now it's telling me that it is over constrained. What that means is that when I created this line, I accidentally got it in line with something else. So I'm just going to go ahead and cancel this. And then I'm going to create this line again. So I'm just going to go to delete. I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to click this endpoint. And then I'll place it here. Once again, I'll go on the XZ axis. I'm going to select this line, which will drop it down. Let's go ahead and put a dimension. And we'll do our angle one first on this one. And we're going to tell it that this one is sitting at 91 degrees. And then I'm going to go ahead and type in the length. which is going to be 18. Okay, let's go ahead and put in our next line here. So we're going to go here. I'm going to select this endpoint. I'm going to go somewhere up this direction. Once again, I always like to verify my XZ. Select the line here. Should snap it down. It's kind of got super small on us, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and put a dimension on it. Once again, I'm using the shortcut of just hitting D. Go ahead and select here. This line has a length of 28. And then I can go ahead and put the angle on it, right? And this angle is 135. So I'm just going to go to D. Select my dotted line here at the bottom. Select this line here. I'll go ahead and place this dimension. And once again, it's asking me about that length again. Let's go ahead and hit cancel. And I think what is happening here is that I'm putting on the dimension before I put the angle on. So that might be one of my ways of kind of combating that. I'm going to try it again this time, and I'm going to do it with the angle first. So I'll select the line. I'm going to place it here. I'm still going to use the XZ plane. Drop it down. Let's go ahead and put our angle on. So using D as the shortcut, select here and here. Then I'll type in 45. And you can see that it did go the other direction. And actually I need that to be 135 then. And it's kind of sending that line all over the place. Let's see, I did an undo on that. Let's go ahead and put this dimension on. And this is going to be 28. And then I'll go ahead and make this dimension 135. Right? All right. So I have these kind of going. And then I have my last one that I need to create, right? So let's see. I have. And it just looks like I kind of put that one in the wrong one. That actually is 28. All right. And now this is starting to come along and look a lot better. And then this line should actually be 23 long. So I'm going to change that number to 23. And now that'll bring me to my last line, right? So I'm trying to create a line that's going this direction that is also going up. If you're looking at your UCS, it'll be on the YZ axis, right? But I'm going to use something that's a little bit more accurate than that, right? So I'm going to start with the line command. I'm going to pick this first point here. And then instead of going ahead and just clicking a point, I'm going to expand underneath the draw menu. And then I'm going to go to precise inputs. Now, when you're looking at the precise inputs, you must know which direction your UCS is going in, right? Because those are going to be the super important numbers. So I want to go 0 on the x-axis because I'm going straight this direction, right? So let's go ahead and type in 0 here. I'll use the tab button. I see I'm going in the Z direction. That's going to be 50. And then I'm going to tab one more time. And in the Y direction, I'm going 50. Nope, I had it right at first. The Z direction, I'm going that direction. I'm going 50. So let me go ahead and change that to 50. And in the Y direction, I'm going 10. Because that's my up direction, right? So I have all of these set. So I have a 0, a 10, and a 50. And once I hit the enter button, I'm going to hit escape. And then we're going to go ahead and take a look at the drawing and see if that compares. So kind of looking at the drawing here, I'm looking at this UCS, and you see I wanted to go this direction, 50. So therefore, that's why my Z direction is 50. I wanted to go up in the Y direction. That's going to be my 10, and the 0 is my X. So it's really important that you take a look and understand what's happening here. All right. So now I'm just going to verify and make sure that everything is drawing correctly. I'm just going to click on this left icon, and you should be able to see that it is going up and it should be tapering up. And likewise, if I click on the top view, you're going to see that it looks just like my drawing does, right? So that's going to be the path that I'm going to need to create. Next, let's go ahead and create the profile. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and click back on the home, and I'm going to rotate around. Let's go ahead and finish this sketch. And then I'm going to use the drop down and create a 2D sketch. Once I do that, I'm going to select this plane here. I'm going to rotate around and take a look at this on the back side, just so I make sure I got it oriented correctly. All right, so over here, away from my drawing, I'm going to kind of create the profile that I need on this side. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of create this shape here. It looks kind of like kind of U-shaped. Let's go ahead and put some dimensions on it. So I'm just going to make this 120. And this is also going to be 120. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create another line that's shaped like this shape, right? So kind of create another W shape. I'm going to go ahead and make these lines parallel to each other by using the parallel constraint. Do it on both sides. All right. Let's go ahead and put a line going across here. And another line going across here. I'm going to trim these extra portions off. You can use extend if your lines are shorter, but I'm just going to go ahead and trim these off. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select both of these endpoints here, and I'm going to make them equal to each other. So I'm just going to select equal here and this one. Let's go ahead and put a dimension, and I'm going to select this line and this line. I'm going to make it 0.5. And it's okay if yours move on you. It's just scaling that first line that we created. I'm going to put a dimension on this line here, and that's going to be our 8.42. We also have a dimension from this line here going down to here. And this distance is going to be 2.17. And then we're just going to make these two lines collinear to each other. So I'm just going to use the collinear constraint. Select this line and this line. Okay. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it that the distance between here should be the same as this distance. So I'm just going to put a dimension from this line to this line. Go ahead and place it. And when it's asking me for the solution, I'm just going to select that number. All right. So all of this is the top portion that is drawn. Let me go ahead and move it down just to get it out of the way of this other stuff. And then we're going to go ahead and put in the bottom portion, right? So I'm just going to draw a line from here, going down, straight across, and then back up. Let's go ahead and trim this portion off. We're going to put a dimension, which is an angled one, here. And that number is going to be 120. And you can see sometimes it will change it to a 60. But if I want that to actually show the 121, I can go back to the dimension and come and place it here and here. All right. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put the dimension from this line to this line. And you can see that it's giving me an angle, and that's because I forgot to make it parallel first. So let's go to parallel and select those two lines. Now when I put a distance command between these two, that distance should be 1.3. All right. A couple more things I need to do here is that I need to give a distance. So I'm just going to use a dimension, and I'm using the shortcut again from this midpoint to this endpoint. Let's go ahead and make that number 1.5. Let's go ahead and add a dimension from this line down to this line, 4.33. All right. What I'm going to do next is just to give us a shortcut for creating the other half. We're going to use the mirror command. So I'm just going to draw a line from that endpoint to that one. Just going to go ahead and make this line a construction line. Then I'll use the mirror command. I'm going to select these three lines. Select the word mirror line. Then I'm going to select my dotted line here. And I'll hit apply. So as long as that middle line is there, you should be okay. Let's go ahead and use the split command. And I'm going to split that line there. I'm going to split it, and where those X's are is where this is actually splitting at. All right. So now that I have those split, I can select this line here, right click and make it construction, Likewise on the other side. And if you got a dimension line that's kind of getting in your way, you can always kind of move this one over. And now I should be able to select that. And if it's still not selecting it, you can always hover over it. And then once this little dialog box comes open, go ahead and select in the drop down. Then I can select the word curve. And then I'll tell it to make that a construction line as well. All right. Okay. So let's go ahead and move this in the right position, right? So I'm just going to kind of come back to here. I'm going to make this isometric. And I need this thing to be touching a part on this curve, right? So I need this center point to be touching one of these endpoints. Easy enough to do. Just use coincidence. Select that endpoint to that endpoint. All right, let me rotate around here, and it seems like I am missing one thing on my sketch. Let's go ahead and take a look back at the back view. And it seems like I got everything that I needed to be covered, but let's see. And it looks like for some strange reason it's missing the midpoint here. So I'm just going to select coincidence, select the green dot, and then select the little dot there. All right, so everything is fully constrained on my end. Let's go ahead and finish sketch. I'm going to go to sweep. It should automatically pick up my closed profile here, and that's why you see that that is turned green. Next, I need to select the path. So it's asking me to go ahead and select that. I'm going to select the path here. And once I hit the OK button, you should see that this 3D racetrack should appear. Right? So once again, I know we kind of worked through that a little bit, I guess, rough for 3D sketches, and that's why, you know, often it's a lot easier to draw those in AutoCAD and bring them over. But in our case, it worked fine here. It took us a little bit longer than what I was expecting to do it, but it's absolutely okay. But we still got to the main point, right? So just be careful anytime you're using the 3D sketches and kind of go one line at a time, right? So hopefully you enjoy this video, and if you got anything out of it, please like and subscribe. And if you like seeing me use more 3D sketches, let me know, and I will try to incorporate that in a few more videos when I'm doing 3D stuff. All right. Oh, and I did forget one other thing, and I know I told you in the intro that I would show you how to put bins on this. So I'll show you that real quick. Let's expand sketch one. Sweep one. I'll find my three-dimensional sketch. I'm going to double click on this icon. It's going to bring me back to the sketch. If you want to put any kind of bends or anything to this, the command for it is here. So if I select bend, and let's go ahead and give it a bend. Some of these are really nice and big, so I can get away with a bend, maybe 5. Let's zoom in, and then I can make a bend here, one here, and then finally one here. All right. So now when I go to finish sketch, let's take a look at how this racetrack will change on you. And now you can see that we do get a little bit more curves and things of that nature to it. So that was one of the things I forgot, and I wanted to make sure I mentioned that to you, is that you can put bends. All right. So if you stayed around this long, I think you deserve that extra tip, and I appreciate you hanging with me all the way to the end. All right. So thank you once again. And like I said, if you got any value out of this, please go ahead and hit the subscribe and like button, and leave me a comment if there's something else that you may think I forgot or a better way of doing this. I'm always open